About Total Rethink by David McCourt. I got 10 points about Total Rethink by David McCourt. This is a book I just read, guys. It's called Total Rethink: Why Entrepreneurs Should Act Like Revolutionaries. This book came out in 2017. It's by David McCourt. If you don't know who David McCourt is, he didn't make his name being an author. I tell you that. David McCourt's a billionaire. I think this is the only book he's ever written. But he made his money off of like telecom, off of cable, off of television, cable television, kind of like he made his money kind of like rewriting the rule book on a lot of things regarding broadcast TV and television and telecommunications in the world, not just in America. But the guy's a billionaire, okay? And I think why this book is relevant kind of starts and stops with the fact that David McCourt's a billionaire. I think this is the only book he's ever written. He doesn't need to write books. He wrote this one just to give back, just to help other people. It's interesting. And on the back of this book, it's business and economics leadership category. That's the category it's in. So I want to give you 10 points about this book. That matter to me. I just finished it. It's not a long read, guys. This is about a 200-page book. What can I tell you about Total Rethink? I got positives and negatives about it. Okay, and I was thinking about how I wanted to do this review, and I tell you what. I think I'm always reading books. Like I'm always ordering books, and I'm always reading books. I'm a physical book guy. Maybe a lot of people aren't. Maybe a lot of younger people probably just read online or they read in e-readers or whatever. I'm 46. I'm kind of an old school guy. I like physical copy books. I like to see the books on my bookshelf. I like to be able to pick them up and physically look at them. That's just me. But anyways, I'm always reading a book. Like I always find that I'm reading a book. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love to read. I don't always love to read business books. I find some of them to be pretty dry. I find some of them to be pretty boring. I find them full of tropes and cliches that get on my nerves after a while. And that's the stuff you won't hear people talking about. That's the stuff you don't usually hear people talking about when it comes to books. People in my space, the internet marketing space, we love to put books up on a pedestal, and we love to kind of like mythologicalize them. That's not a word, but you know what I'm saying. We kind of put them up on a pedestal, give them legend. We do this all the time. Things like Think and Grow Rich. Things like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I could go on and on and on with books that have been kind of like mythologized or whatever. But we do that. Like I find that I'm always reading books. So I think it'd be smart for me to maybe do little book reviews for you on Index Card Insights sometimes. And I was thinking, yeah, maybe I'll start doing that. But if I'm going to do book reviews, then what I want to do is I want to give you the negatives and the positives. I don't know, call me a realist, but I don't think I've read a book yet that I didn't have negative things to say about. Maybe I'm a pessimist. I don't know. I want to be an optimist, but I'm kind of a realist, and I see the pros and the cons of everything. I'm talking about business ventures, projects that I'm working on. I want to see the whole picture, okay? That's just how my brain works. I want to see the whole picture. I want to see the good and the bad so I can make an actual good decision regarding that situation. Because I don't know anything that doesn't have a downside. Everything has a downside, good and bad. And if it doesn't have a downside, I don't trust it. And the reason I don't trust it is because it's probably got a downside I'm just not seeing. I mean, have you ever seen a piece of paper with one side? It doesn't happen, right? Piece of papers always have two sides. Everything has two sides. So most business propositions, most ventures that I've dealt with, most projects that I've started, they have two sides, right? They have a good and a bad. And the question is, do I want to deal with it, right? Does the good outweigh the bad? Does it make sense for me? But I want to know both sides, okay? So that's how I think I want to do these book reviews. If I'm going to do book reviews on Index Card Insights, that's how I want to do it. So let me give you 10 points on Total Rethink by David McCourt. All right. Okay. So the point point one is David McCourt's from Boston, right? And Boston has a personality to it. If you've ever been to Boston, you know what I'm talking about. Some cities have a personality, and people tend to wear that personality on their sleeve in some way, shape, or form, man. They're proud of where they're from. And I think David McCourt's proud that he's from Boston. He's kind of got a little of that Boston grit in him, and that comes through in his writing, okay? That grit, that determination of where he's from comes through, and I like that. I like that about the book. It makes him a little bit more relatable. Um, the second thing is that you should know, and I've already said this, but David McCourt is a billionaire. All right, he's not. He didn't make a bunch of money off of writing books. Okay, he made a bunch of money off of revolutionizing telecommunications industry. So there's a big difference between how he made his money. He didn't make his money writing books. He made his money revolutionizing the telecommunications industry. It's a big difference. But the point is, that matters because if you want to learn how a billionaire thinks, you got to read things written by a billionaire. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good point, and that's another thing I like about this book. It's speaking from experience. It's not a reporting, right? It's not somebody reporting on something that they have no personal experience in. There's nothing wrong with being the reporter, all right? There's nothing wrong with being the reporter, but what I'm saying is you can get a perspective when you're dealing with someone who is talking about something they intimately know about that you cannot get when you're watching the news, all right? There's a difference. There's a difference between going to the source and just listening to someone reporting on something. There's a difference. There's room for both of those things in your research and in your education, but I'm just saying there's a difference, and I think that's the second thing I would say about this. It makes it very valuable because it's written by a billionaire, and it's about his life, right? So the third thing I would say about this book is there's a lot of bragging and a lot of name dropping in this book. A lot of bragging and a lot of name dropping in this book. And you know what? Rightfully so, right? McCourt has dealt with a lot of people. He's done a lot. He's accomplished a lot. And he has the right to talk about it. I mean, that is his life. So I don't even know if he's doing it on purpose. I don't know if he's flexing or if he's just telling you about his life, but it's just that amazing and that crazy that it just comes across as bragging and name dropping. I don't know. I don't know which one it is, but I will tell you it was tedious and annoying, and I got tired of it. That's what I'll tell you about that. It was just annoying and tedious, and I just got sick of hearing about it, right? I got sick about hearing about David McCourt's amazing life and how awesome everything is that he does. You know, it's like everything the guy does turns to gold eventually, right? You know what I mean? Yes, he fails, and he does fail in the book, but it seems like he always turns it around. Every failure turns into a success, right? And he knows everybody, presidents, actresses, actors, famous leaders. I mean, this dude knows everybody. I mean, he's well connected. He's super well connected. And the bragging and the name dropping, it got tedious, and it made it hard for me to get through these 200 pages. I hated him. I actually hated him reading this book, and I loved it. I loved him, and I hated him. He was an awesome person, but I also didn't like him. He got on my nerves, right? It's hard to relate to a billionaire if you're not a billionaire. There's a difference, There's a difference between the common person and a billionaire. There's a big difference in how you think. And if you want to understand how a billionaire thinks, this is a good book to read. But don't think that he thinks like you, because he doesn't think like you. If you're a normal person, you don't think like a billionaire, right? And sometimes the way he thinks, it might irritate you. It might annoy you. You might get tired of the bragging and the name dropping, but that's part of it, or that's part of the book. The fourth thing I would tell you about this book is lessons. This book's got a lot of lessons in it. And I'll try to talk about a couple of them here on this podcast, but it's got a lot of lessons in it. He tries to make it easy for you to find the lessons. Every single chapter, he's got main takeaways from that chapter right there. But still yet, it is easy to get lost in the autobiographical content. It's not just a pure how-to book. It's like a self-help book mixed with an autobiography. So it's easy to get lost in the autobiography portion, and sometimes it's so foreign and so alien to my life and what I do, that I felt disconnected from it. I felt pretty disconnected from it, and it made it hard to get the lessons out of it. But there are some lessons in there. He actually makes it easy for you to get the lessons. He tells you what the lessons are at the end of the chapters. Um, so he tells you what the takeaway should be. He tells you what he's trying to get across to you at the end of the chapters. Um, Again, like sometimes I disconnected with it, but there are definitely lessons in there in every single chapter. Um, you know, I think that the the fifth thing that I would say about this is I feel like there's some pandering going on. I feel like David McCourt wrote this. It came out in 2017. I feel like this book is geared towards younger people. Um, and I feel like this book kind of criticizes older people in a way. I mean, he tells you to think young in the book. He David McCourt has a disdain for old ways of doing things. He's a disruptor. He creates new things to disrupt old systems, right? That's what he does. So he's always got his finger on the pulse of new things that are happening. So he really thinks young, and he tells you to think young. But in doing so, and keeping his finger on the pulse of new things that are happening, and in being this guy that kind of disrupts established systems with new stuff, and he usually uses technology and he leverages that to do it. In doing that, I feel like, and it's kind of a weird thing too, because he's an older guy. I think McCourt is like, I think he's like in his 60s. Um, I got to figure this out really quick. Age. Um, yeah, yeah, he's like, um, I don't know how old he is. He's like, oh man, I shouldn't be doing this. This is horrible podcasting. David McCourt, age. Let me just see. David McCourt, age, um, business. Yeah, I don't know. He has to be like he's probably like in his 50s, maybe 60s. He's probably in his 60s. I figured this out at one point. But anyways, he's an older guy. He's not like a young guy. He's very successful, but he's on the older side. Um, so yeah, but he does have a disdain for older views, older ways of thinking, conservatism. He's not really into. It's funny. It's like at odds. You know what I mean? He says he's open to everybody. He says he's open to all different opinions and views, and he tries to have an open mind. But he definitely leans young. Whatever the new thing is, whatever the disruptive force is, that's what he leans to. So I do think there's some pandering going on in this book towards younger people. It doesn't really feel like it was aimed at me, that's for sure. It feels like it was aimed at the young minority entrepreneur that wants to go to college or is just coming out of college. That's who it feels like this book is aimed at. It doesn't feel like it's aimed at like the 46-year-old white business dude. That doesn't seem like who it's aimed at, but I think anybody can get value out of it. But he definitely panders a little bit in this book towards this younger crowd. Yeah, so that was irritating to me. I have to admit it was irritating. Um, the sixth thing I would tell you about this book, and I got 10 things in all to tell you, is David McCourt. Most of his success, it really came from networking, right? A lot of this success that he's experienced, and he says this, anything that you want to involve yourself in, any business that you want to involve yourself in, anything that you want to do that's interesting is going to involve like tapping other people. It's going to involve including other people, working with other people. I think that David McCourt would even tell you that one of his biggest skills is his ability to connect with people. He goes out of his way to network with people. He networks with everybody. Now, you can look up interviews on YouTube with David McCourt. You're not going to find tons and tons of David McCourt interviews. Like there's a period of time when he put this book out in 2017 where you're going to find a series of interviews that he did for this book. Um, and they were really good interviews. And if you listen to them, you'll see how knowledgeable this guy is. He's very smart, but he is big on networking. He's really really big on working with other people to solve problems. He doesn't believe in just doing things everything by yourself. He believes in working with other people to get things done. And I love that. I love that about the book. I think that was an awesome takeaway and an awesome point. It makes you think I need to be better at networking. That's what it made me think. I need to be better at working with other people and stop being so much of an island because I can't get as many things done just working by myself. I need to be able to work with other people and do more collaborations. And that was a big takeaway from this book for me. What else? I got four more things to tell you about this book. The seventh thing is that McCourt is very hardworking, right? This guy's a billionaire. He doesn't care that much about money. He doesn't care about material things that much. He's a really hard worker. When he has an idea in his mind, he goes for it and he doesn't give up. He does not give up. When people tell him it can't be done, it makes him want to do it even more, right? And I think that's that Boston kind of grit, you know? He's up for the challenge. If you tell this guy he can't do something, he's going to find a way to do it. I mean, that's just kind of how he is. He's like a bulldog. He will get it done. You tell him he can't do it, he's going to do it. But he's very, very hardworking. And that's another big takeaway from this book. It's funny. I was doing a podcast the other day and I was telling you guys, you can be lazy, but you can't be stupid. You can be stupid, but you can't be lazy. You can be stupid and you can be stupid, but you can't be, you know what I mean? You can be one or the other, but you can't be both. You can't be lazy and stupid. That's the lethal combination. Well, this guy is not lazy and he's not stupid. So he succeeds very, very well. So that's another takeaway I would say. He's very, very hardworking. My eighth point on this book is that McCourt is, and don't get this twisted, McCourt is a visionary, right? He is 100% lateral thinker. This guy thinks outside the box all the time, right? Whenever he sees an established system that looks like it's been around for a long time, he's looking for a way to disrupt it. He sees it as a fat, old, bloated system, and he's looking for a way to disrupt it. Usually, he's looking for a way to use technology in some way to disrupt that system. That's what I found with him in his career over and over and over again. He's looked for fat, bloated, old systems that a lot of people don't have an interest in changing because they're making money off of it, right? And he wants to move in and he wants to disrupt that system, right? And a lot of times he leverages technology and his connections to do it. But it's very, very interesting. And yeah, don't get it twisted. This guy's a visionary. He's a lateral thinker. He's always looking to disrupt old systems that are bloated. They've been around for a long time. Established. Let's call them established systems. Every time he sees an established system, he wants to disrupt it. So I think that's visionary thinking. A lot of people see an established system and they see something successful. It's been working for a long time. They see safety, right? That's not McCourt. McCourt likes to create new things. He's very disruptive. If he sees something that's been around for a long time, he's going to instantly start thinking, how could I make something better than that? How could I disrupt that with technology, right? That's how he thinks. So that's very interesting. The ninth thing that I can tell you about this is this book was over my head at times. And you know what? That didn't surprise me. McCourt's a billionaire. He tries to speak in plain English here, but there's a difference between what I do and what he does. There's levels to this entrepreneurial game. And McCourt is doing it at a high level, higher than most people. At times it was over my head. And I love it like when things are over my head. I love that. I love it when things are over my head because when they're over my head, it forces me to figure out what the hell he's talking about. Now I got to go look that up and figure out what he's talking about. So that's awesome. That means I'm being pushed. I'm pushing myself. I'm learning. So I love that he speaks over my head sometimes. It's awesome. And then the 10th thing that I would tell you about this book is I want you to understand, again, This is part autobiographical, where it's like he's telling you a story about his life, and it's part self help. Every single chapter has takeaways for you. So it's part autobiographical and it's part self help. And sometimes you can get lost in that. Sometimes you get a little lost in it. Sometimes I got lost in it and it was a little bit, at times it was tedious for me. At times it made me mad. At times I didn't like David McCourt. I thought he was a rich asshole, and I didn't appreciate him. But I kept on finishing the book. It pushed me. It was a great book. I liked it. And when it comes to this last idea, I'll tell you, should you read this book? I just gave you 10 points on it. Do I think you should read it? Yes, I think you should read it. Do I think you're going to like it? I don't know. I hated it sometimes and I liked it sometimes. Overall, I got something out of it. And that's the most important thing. I learned something. Should you read it? If you want to be more successful in life and in business, yes, you should read it because this is by someone who's doing it at a very, very high level. They are a billionaire. And if you want to hear how a billionaire thinks, read this book. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty good. I wasn't always happy reading it, but it's worth your time and it's worth your money. That's all I got. That's Total Rethink by David McCourt. I hope this podcast has been helpful for you today. If you like this, if you want to hear more book reviews like this, let me know. If you want to learn more about what I do and what I got going on, check out epicconversions.com. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Index Card Insights. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another one. Peace, everybody.